All right, we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Curse of Oak Island and Beyond live stream. I have my co-host over here, Jack Campbell. Jack, how you doing?
I'm doing fine, Jeff. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. And we are we are actually waiting for Carmen. We were in the I guess green room you could call it with him here just a moment ago, and he was having a little bit of an internet connection issue, so he is restarting everything. He should be with us here any second. So yeah, we're really excited about this because we've been waiting for a long time here. I have anyway to be able to hear from hear from Carmen and have him on the show. So this is really an exciting day for us. I know for Jack and I and Linda. And by the
It'll
way,
be a good educational day for us.
yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly right. Yes, and we have Linda out there. She's out there working the chat. Hi, Ruby. How you doing? Mary's here. Let's see. We got Jan Everson Anderson here with us. Hi, Susan's with us. All right. Give us a quick shout. Let us know you're here.
Oh,
And
Don.
yep. So we're just giving it, like I said, we're giving it a minute for Carmen to get back here with us. But yeah, hopefully he's not having an issue. I haven't seen him come back yet, but we had him. He was having a little bit of an internet delay there, a little bit lag. And he dropped out several times. And that may happen when he comes back. He may drop out a few times during our conversation. And if he does, I'm ready to just bring him back on as soon as he reconnects. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that, we don't have too much trouble with that here tonight. Let's see. Pat's here with us. Don's here with us. Cheryl, how you doing? Hello. Glad you're here. So, boy, that's been a pretty exciting week. I know. And then I know that, with some of the finds on that we've had. Oh, here he comes. Here comes Carmen. And all right, here we go. And I'm going to introduce him real quick. All right, there is Carmen. He's back with us. How are you doing, Carmen? We're live on the air now.
Hi, I'm back. Hopefully, better this time.
Yeah, I kind of warned everybody that we may have a little bit of an issue with your internet here today, this afternoon. Hopefully, it won't be too bad, and we can get a good show in.
I never seen it work right yet.
Yeah, I know. Thanks for all the wonderful internet stuff. I know, but it seems to be working pretty good at the moment. So, and I went ahead and I talked to folks that are all here logged in. We've got a pretty good crowd showing up. So I kind of wanted to take a couple minutes as we get started here, Carmen, just to kind of ask you about, what's happening up in Nova Scotia, with the pandemic. I guess, are you guys closed down again right now?
Yeah, we are closed down. We're in a state of emergency. Our COVID numbers are pretty good. We're keeping everything under control. You have to use your mask, wash your hands, sanitize. Main thing is stay 6 feet away, and we've been pretty good, and our COVID numbers are quite low. But we are sort of getting tired of it. We want to see things open up and get the vaccine and get this over with.
We all do.
Yeah, we all feel the same way about that. And I know that was something that last year, we unfortunately with the whole thing with COVID going on, everybody wasn't able to get out to the island and really start getting to work out there until early summer, I guess, right toward the beginning of the summertime. We hope that doesn't happen again this year.
Yeah, it would be nice. I know I wasn't involved until the end of June, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
So you live in Kentville, I guess, Kentville, Nova Scotia. And of course, we all know that, as far as, the TV show goes, that you are a blacksmith, obviously, and they bring you a lot of different artifacts. But tell us a little bit about your history. And like you started off going to school to be an electrician. Is that correct?
Yes. I grew up on a typical rural inland Nova Scotia community. We used oxen, basically oxen, some horses. We didn't start using tractors and modern machinery until at least 1975. Wow. So I went to school, became an electrician, worked for a little while as an electrician. I come to find out I don't like heights. So I sort of gave that up. And then and then for 17 years, I was a wood producer. So I would produce logs and lumber, Christmas trees, firewood, whatever.
Wow.
And then for the last 18 years, I was hired at the Ross Farm Museum, first as a ox teamster, and then after 3 or 4 years, I became a blacksmith full time.
Wow. An ox teamster. Now that's interesting. I know that you have even written a book about that. You have a book about the training, care, and use of oxen, correct? And that you wrote that yourself.
In 2010, I wrote a book called Oxen, Their Care, Training, and Use. You can go into any bookstore or on the internet and find lots of books about how to train and use horses. Not so much for oxen. So I felt there was a need out there, especially where there were traditional people or people that wanted to be traditionalists, and they wanted to go back to the land, basically go back to the land and work the land the way their forefathers did. That was mainly with oxen. So I wrote the book in partially for the people to learn and partially out of respect for the people who came before.
Right. And that's very interesting too, because not only that, it's in itself, about the oxen, but also when it comes in relating to, the blacksmithing, there's so much of that, the traditional knowledge of that, or the traditional use of that, gets lost over the years. So without somebody being able to do that, and carry on and teach younger people about that stuff, that knowledge will be lost. So that's very interesting.
Yes, it's very important, I think, to pass these traditional skills on. Now, when I say that I consider myself a traditional blacksmith, I have a very narrow definition of that. To be a traditional blacksmith, you have to have the ability to do all sorts of things, such as making hinges and nails and bolts and hooks and everything. But you also have to be able to make shoes for the oxen and the horse, and be able to shoe both oxen and horses.
Right.
As far as I know, there's only 5 in North America that can do that.
Oh, really? To actually make the shoe? Because I know I was raised on a farm and we had horses. And I actually did raise a steer when I was FFA years ago. We we lost him. Looks like he'll be back in just a minute. We lost him again. So when he jumps back, when he gets back here, we'll bring him back in. Yeah. Unfortunately, having a little issue with his internet there. But we'll get some more information from him. Boy, this is pretty interesting already. Oh, there he comes. Let me click on the button here and bring him back. Okay, there we are. You're back.
There we go.
Yeah, to repeat that one.
Carmen, a lot of that was passed on by mouth, wasn't it? Before you wrote the book and everything, a lot of it was through the centuries was just handed down by mouth from blacksmith to blacksmith, really.
Yes. My training in the last 18 years started off with learning under a traditional blacksmith. He was he didn't suffer fools. He was a very no nonsense man. He taught me a lot about blacksmithing. That's 1/3 of my training. The other 1/3 was I was taught by another blacksmith. He taught me what not to do, as opposed to the first fellow teaching me what to do. And so that's another 1/3. And the last 1/3 I taught myself. So I would seminars, courses, internet training, books, whatever I could find to learn more about blacksmithing in the traditional ways.
Right. Yeah, and that's something that, and again, I know I just mentioned it a moment ago as when we lost you there, but that you also do a little bit of teaching, do you not? Teaching some of the people about doing blacksmithing and things of that nature, right?
Yeah, I love teaching now. The blacksmithing, I do some reproduction work and some small items, but mainly I'm a teacher now.
Okay. One thing I found interesting was that there were a lot of women that wanted to learn to do this. It seemed like when I saw the breakdown, it was a pretty close breakdown of men to women.
I didn't catch that.
Go ahead, Jack. Go ahead, Jack.
Okay. When I looked it up, I wanted to do this also for ornaments and stuff like that and everything to learn.
He was talking about the amount of women that want to learn how to be a blacksmith as well as men.
Oh, yes. 1/3 of my students are women. Maybe a little more than 1/3, but not quite half, but more than 1/3 of my students are women.
Right.
Of course, they don't make shoes and shoe to horses, but they like making hooks and trellises and small hinges, some artwork, flowers,
Right.
things like that.
Yep. Something like that I started. I mean, I remember when I first talked to you about coming on here, about a month ago, I had sent you a picture of, I worked with a blacksmith. I'm originally, and the members know that I'm originally from the UP of Michigan.
Oh yeah.
I'm a Uper, and I was working with a gentleman up there that actually does the same thing that you do at Ross Farm Museum. My mom was very instrumental in setting up a museum in Kinross, Michigan, up there. And what they did, they had a historical, they had a log cabin there. They had an old schoolhouse there, and they had a blacksmith shop that they set up. I worked with a gentleman by Bill Morrison. Bill brought me in. Oh, we lost him again. I'm sorry, folks.
I think you're gonna have a problem hearing me, Jeff. Is what I think it's gonna be. Could
be. Yeah. Oh boy. Well, hang in there, folks. We'll get him back here in just a moment. He's I don't know if weather is affecting this or not. He is on a Wi-Fi. Oh, there he is. He's coming back now. He's popping back in. And let's see. There we are. We got him back. Okay. So as I was saying there, that he was able to teach me a few things. Very, very on the. If there's a level before a newbie, that would be where I am. But I was working with him on a few things, and I was showing this to you. It's a leaf that we pounded out that he helped me make.
Yeah,
I tell you, if it wasn't for him guiding me every step of the way, it would just be a lump of steel or iron, you know. But when you were talking about some of the decorative things, some of the things that he made that were decorative, and I don't know how well you can see this, but it's just a little hook, a little fancy hook and things like that. And I guess this would, like you were saying, that man, and he made this. I had nothing to do with this, but and the twisting of it, it's just fascinates me to no end that how watching you guys do this kind of thing. It really is. And I suppose that Ross, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a very satisfying skill when you can take something as hard as iron and mold it to your will. Very satisfying. Yeah.
Now you're traditional too, because now there's no power hammer in your shop, correct?
No.
All muscle. You just pounded it away. That's interesting because so many blacksmiths you see today will have those types of tools, modern day tools, and
that's right.
And you're a traditionalist, so you stick with the old stuff.
Yeah, I don't know how to use torches. I don't know how to use a welder or plasma cutter or anything like that. I just weld the traditional way, using flux and beating and pounding fashion. I put it.
That's fantastic.
Go
ahead.
We've been doing that. We've been doing that here for 400 years.
Yeah. One of the things I found interesting is that you also help to set up black shops also around the country.
Yeah, I have 3 blacksmith shops that I can go into at any one time, and also I am requested sometimes to set up blacksmith shops for other people. So I've probably done maybe 8 blacksmith shops here in Nova Scotia, set them up for different people, and there's a way to set up the blacksmith shop so that things flow and you're not going to twist your back or end up with carpal tunnel or tendonitis or whatever. But I have 3 myself that I can use at any one time.
Wow. That's really neat. And I know that in that setting of that shop up, that you're also passing on knowledge to the person, I would assume,
yes,
as far as, that very thing. And that's, and I guess in the past, you step back, 100 years or so, blacksmiths were very, very important in each town, because that was the guy that you went to for making tools for you to do, farming or what have you, correct?
Yes, that's right. Yeah. A blacksmith would make and also temper all of his tools, including his punches, hammers to some extent, not the bigger hammers, but the smaller hammers, and all of his own tongs.
Tongs, yeah. And I seen a guy like this. Bill he must have had, I don't know, a dozen different tongs that he was using over a course of, his shop. They were all hanging up there, all the different tools.
At last count, I have 42.
42. Oh my goodness. Well, yeah, we had 12 at the shop there, but he probably had a lot more at his regular shop. 42. Oh my gosh. Now, why, okay. I got to ask. And now I got guitars, and I would love to have 42 guitars, but why would you need 42? I mean, are they that different? The specialty, like I'm going to say a duck bill, or, different lengths of the ends and things like that. Is that why?
Yes, that's right. They all have different bills onto them for holding the different shapes and different sizes, metal in different ways. Yes.
Right. Wow.
Well, one of the things I found real interesting, Carmen, was I read that when you made nails, they made so many at one time that they really put out the nails in a hurry.
Yeah,
for
that's right.
people.
Yeah.
So, you talked a little bit too about doing reproductions. I know reproductions were, you had done a few, I guess, for like movies and things.
Well, basically, when it comes to the reproduction, it's other historical sites or other historical museums are doing repairs, and they want some of the items made exactly, not want them exactly like they were, but they also want them done or made exactly like they would have been made in a certain time. So they'll come to me and they'll say, "I'd like to have this hinge done as they did in the 1700s." First of all, I got to figure out what kind of is it. Is it French? Is it English? Then go back and find out what the techniques were during 1750 or 1795. Or there are certain times throughout the last 400 years when techniques changed, and sometimes it might be 50 years before techniques change, and might be 10 years techniques change. The other reproduction things.
Oh,
there he goes.
We lost him again. Okay. Well, this might happen quite a bit, folks. And I like I said, there's unfortunately there's not much we can do about that. But
he's having trouble hearing me today too. For some reason.
We'll just wait for him to get logged back in here. Okay. All right. Here he comes. Okay. All right. There you are. You're back with us. Okay. So you were talking about the reproduction items.
Yes. The other thing would be movies. So they would come and they want some of these movie props. With movie props, they don't have to be exactly made as they were in the past, but they had to be similar. And so I did movie props for Lizzie Borden, Pirates of the Caribbean.
Oh, wow.
Some other ones I can't remember now. I think there was another one was called Moby Dick. I think it was called Moby Dick. But different things.
So that would have been relatively recently, because you've been doing blacksmithing for how many years now? 17 or so?
I grew up doing traditional auction and some horses. I've been a blacksmith for the last 18.
Okay. Wow. Wow. That's fantastic. So yeah, that's quite a part to your resume to say that you've actually made movie props for. You said Lizzie Borden. I guess that was one of the. You said would that have been the axe that was used in the movie?
Yeah, the murder weapon was. They requested me to make an axe that you can't go out on the market and buy. That was so that somebody saw the movie, and they flipped out and they wanted an identical axe to, go out there and hack somebody. They could not find this axe because it's a one-of-a-kind axe.
Right. So you were able to come up with your own design then. You were kind of given license to make your own design for that.
It's
oh, wow. There he goes again. Oh, goodness gracious. Well, hopefully we'll get this worked out. I mean, it's one of those things, folks. And I don't know, like you said, if it's the storm that's going on up there. Here he comes. All he has to do is click the button and come back. There we go. All right, you're back again.
Yeah, we're back again. What was the last question?
We were talking about the axe and you having a little bit of liberty to make your own design on that.
Right.
Oh yes. The black axes are made in different styles. So you can have a shingling hatchet, you can have an adze, you could have a splitting axe. It could be for you and timbers or whatever. This axe was just a conglomerate style made into one axe.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So, we talked a little bit about you were teaching others about doing blacksmithing and that, and also one of the things that I thought about too was there would be, when it comes to blacksmithing, there would probably be different um, skill sets, of course, and different, like I was going to call them levels, but they really wouldn't be levels. But I guess you would have maybe in more modern days. I guess the blacksmith of old days would make pretty much everything that had to do with a tool
Yes,
or a
that's right.
hinge or decorative work or whatever. He would do all of it. But
Whatever.
today, maybe
Yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So I was
Yeah.
wondering if today they would be more specialized. Like this guy might work on railings and grates or gates and things of that nature, more wrought iron type stuff. And then this guy might be more into tools, and this guy's more into decorative things. Is that what you're seeing in more today's type blacksmithing? That you specialize in certain areas?
I do specialize in a little bit in leather braiding, but when it comes to blacksmith, I specialize in making shoes and shoeing the
Mhm.
oxen. Not so much
Mhm.
the horses, because there's people out there that can do the horses.
Right,
I don't want to take any work away from a farrier, which
right,
is a horse shoer. I'm a
right.
blacksmith, so I tend to make shoes and shoe the oxen. That's my
Right.
specialty. But there's other things too, like I making cloak pins or special types of games, puzzle stories. Pokers, I make pokers in the shape of a spear or a sword, and of course I'm hinges, all different kinds of hinges.
Mhm. Well, I certainly, when it comes to swords and knives, I am a little bit of a collector of swords and knives. And as you can see up here on the wall behind me, I have a couple that I have purchased from a place called Legacy Forge. And those are handmade. Those are not something brought over from Pakistan or something like that. Not to say that those aren't good, but they're
Right.
more wall hangings or whatever. These were actually made by Legacy Forge, which I'm about ready to make another purchase from them. But anyway, so I do love the knives and the swords, and I have a few bayonets that are old that I have also collected over the
Yes,
years. But
I see some on the wall behind you on beyond my right.
yeah,
Were
right
they
up here.
blacksmith?
Yes, yes, those were blacksmith swords right up there. Yes, they were. They were made by Legacy Forge, as a
Very
company
nice.
in the United States. So yeah, and and every time I see them, I order something new. So, but I really like those quite a bit. Um, I was going to bring up a little bit also. When you do your work at the Ross Farm Museum, which unfortunately is, had probably seen some rough times with COVID, but
Yes.
you're there and you are doing you dress up in period clothing, and then you are going out and waiting for people to come in. Tell us a little bit about what happens there for you at the Ross Farm Museum and your day there, so to speak.
Okay. The Ross Farm Museum started in 1970.
Hmm.
It was a gift given to the Nova Scotia government on the understanding that the person who donated the museum were to be given a house, a new house, firewood for life, and so on and so forth.
Hmm.
And the Ross Farm Museum is based on Captain William Ross, who came in 1816.
Oh wow.
Uh, and like I say, the museum's been going since 1970.
Hmm.
People come from all over. We do a lot of workshops and do a lot of seminars and teaching there as well. But it is a public museum. But right now, it's closed. Um,
Right.
uh, when I first started there, I was wearing an 1820 costume, which tends to be has a long shirt hang down past the knees. They didn't wear underwear. They didn't have a right and left boot or shoe back then. I did that for about the first 4 or 5 years, and then I switched over to an 1870 costume,
Hmm.
which has normal length shirts. They would have had left and right foot. The shirt would have been cotton instead of linen. And in 1870, it was less of a military style dress as opposed to 1820, which was post-military and it tended to be fluffy and look military style.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
and
that's
I
always
see.
to see how we're dressed up, and people come and they're
Right.
fascinated about the way we dress.
Yeah, and that's very interesting. And as I was saying a little bit earlier, that when my mom was involved in setting up the Heritage Society and the museum up in Michigan, my mom was a spinner, and what they would do is they'd spin wool. So she would dress in the period costume, and they would go there and they would set up and they would spin wool. And they would also do the same thing like you're doing here, where you would be explaining to people about blacksmithing. And being I guess it actually the term is a blacksmith interpreter. And then my mom would do the same thing when it came to the spinning, and then working with I worked with the blacksmith there as well. But it was very interesting because people could come by whenever you wanted for a donation for the museum, and you would be able to learn all these different things about the way people lived back then. And it's just fascinating. And I hope that doesn't you guys don't get affected at Ross Farm Museum too much by the pandemic, and you're able to continue that on, because it is something of heritage that we don't want to lose, for sure.
No, so it's very important that we don't lose it. And the best way to preserve that is to actually do it, practice, and teach.
Yep. Absolutely. And thank the Lord for people like you that will do that and pass that knowledge on to everyone, because that, I'll tell you what, that's just again, like I said, it's just something that we don't want to lose. Now, I noticed that you have above your door here, you have J.J. Morley, General Blacksmith. Who was J.J. Morley? Can you tell us about him?
The J.J. stands for Joseph Jerome Marley. He was a local boy that went to Boston. He learned the trade of blacksmithing. He worked in Boston for 7 years, and then came back to New Ross, Nova Scotia, and set up this shop in 1910.
Wow!
And he gave it to his son, who also had his first initial was also J, so they didn't have to change the sign. And so the original J.J. Morley started in 1910 and went to 1955. The son went from 1955 to 1987.
Wow. And so that's in, and you have the name up there. Is that in memorial to them, or
Pardon?
Is that son? The name you have above there, that's really interesting that you use that name, and that's to kind of carry that on for them, I suppose.
Can't catch that.
Okay. Anyway, we'll move on. There's another picture there. There's also here's one that I thought was very interesting, and we had Ross. We lost him again. Oh boy. Well, we'll just wait for him to come back. I hope this is going well. I hope you guys can hear him pretty well out there. Thanks for coming out. We have quite a few people viewing today, so thank you for coming. Oh, here he comes. He's joining us back. I got to click on him here. There we go. All right.
Oh, yes, I see it.
Yeah, so I brought up this picture here. This is actually you in the process of actually shoeing an oxen right there.
Yes, that's right. Looks like I was doing the front foot.
Yep.
Now, how long does it take to shoe an oxen, Carmen?
Traditionally, in the past, they could do as high as 8 pair in one day. It takes me about an hour and a half to do 2, a team or a pair, or whatever you want to call it. So it takes me about an hour and a half. Sometimes I can do it in an hour. That's just shoeing. That's not making the shoes. That's just shoeing.
Right.
Shoeing about an hour. That depends a lot on the ox as well. If he wants to behave himself, I can get it done faster. But if he's always fighting me, it takes longer.
Right. Now, do you actually trim their hoof as well before you put the shoe on, like a farrier would? Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah. Except for a farrier only has 1 foot to do. I have to do 2 on every foot.
Yeah, so exactly.
They have to be the same height, up and down. They have to be the same height. They can be. They got to be. One can't be tipped up or down. They also can't be tipped in or out. And they got to be pretty well pointed in the same direction.
Yep.
So you have to make individual shoes for individual oxen then?
No, you make a whole lot of shoes ahead of time, and then every set of shoes contains 16. So out of the 16, you can usually find 8 that will fit the first ox. So he's done, he goes out, the second ox comes in. The last 8 shoes may not fit the ox perfectly, so sometimes you have to put it back in the fire, tweak it a little bit, bend it a little bit. Another interesting thing about ox shoes and horseshoes, if you know anything about horseshoes, you know they're flat. Ox shoes are not flat; they're bent so that they are bowl shaped, and the foot fits the bowl of an ox shoe, or not a horseshoe. A horseshoe is flat.
Right. And like you said, if you don't put them on properly, or if they're not lined up properly, that could damage the, bring harm, pain or harm to the actual oxen itself.
That's right. And then they start walking funny. And then by walking funny, you know they're in pain, or so on and so forth. So you have to be very careful.
Yep. And this picture here, you're there with a team, and you've got your book in your hand. I know the picture is real small, and Ross Farm Museum sent us a couple of these pictures for us when we asked. And here's this one here. I wish I could make it bigger, folks. I just can't. But it shows you there with your team and holding your book in your hand. Is that book still for sale? Is that still out on the market for sale?
Yes. If you go on Amazon, you can type in Oxen, their care, training, and use, or just on my name, it'll come up. $24.95.
What prompted you to do the book? Just because there was really no information out there about it?
What's that? What's that again?
What prompted you to do the book? Because there was probably no information really out there about how to do that or anything about Oxen?
Going in and out too much. Maybe
he was asking about what prompted you to write the book. Was it about because you wanted to get that knowledge out there?
Say it again.
What prompted you to write the book?
When did I write the book?
No, what was your idea about it? What prompted you to do it?
Why did I want to write the book?
Yeah.
Was it why?
Yes. Yes. It's breaking up on it. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I know it is breaking up a little bit. I apologize, folks, that's we're having a little issue with that. And again, I think it's the internet not playing well with us here today. Carmen, you had a couple.
There's something going on. I can't hear.
Okay. Yep. I wanted to bring up. Is it working yet? Are you able to hear yet?
No.
No. Okay. Let's see where we can go. Oh, he's going to reconnect real quick and see if that'll help. Boy, I apologize, folks. Unfortunately,
I think he hears you okay. I think it's me that he's having a problem hearing.
Yeah, it's breaking up on his end, and yeah, that's unfortunate. We might have to we'll probably have to bring him back at some point. Where okay, here he comes back, and we'll see. All right, you're back. Are you able to hear me at this point?
We'll keep trying, but it don't work great.
Okay. I wanted to share another picture. This is one that you sent me a little bit ago, showing you standing in front of an Oak Island sign. What's this all about?
Well, I thought it was neat to take a picture of this sign. As you look onto the sign, it says Oak Island Road, and there's 2 arrows. And I was just sort of wondering if people would pick up on, especially the people who have been to Oak Island many times, especially the crew on the Fellowship of the Dig, if they've seen the sign before, but nobody seems to pick up onto it. But I sometimes ask people, which way is the sign pointing towards Oak Island? Is it the arrow on the left, or is it the arrow on the right?
And when you asked me that, I was completely wrong. I got it wrong both times.
We both did.
Yeah. Most people don't know that there's 2 Oak Islands on Nova Scotia.
Yep.
One on the Bay of Fundy, one on the Bay of Fundy, and one on the Atlantic Ocean. And the show concentrates on the one on the Atlantic Ocean. This one is one on the Bay of Fundy. So these 2 places are 100 miles apart. But I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, it is. It is very interesting because I had no idea. Now, the Bay of Fundy is it's further inland, like on the other side of the Nova Scotia. I've seen a map of Nova Scotia, so it's actually on the opposite side, basically, of the Atlantic side, correct?
That's right. Yes, it'd be on the north side of Nova Scotia in
Right.
the Bay of Fundy.
Right.
One other little thing I can tell you about, as far as we know, there's only 2 islands on Nova Scotia that have the name Oak Island. The oak means door to the right. Door is spelled D-U-I-R. And if you go on the Oak Island that we're concerned with, the door to the right would be Gold River. If you go on this Oak Island, the door to the right would be the Gaspereau River.
Oh, wow.
The thing is, Gaspereau River and the Gold River all meet in the same place.
Oh, really? And where is that?
Coincidence?
I don't know. I don't know. You had one more picture, and I thought this one was really, really interesting here. It looks like a boat launch. Oh,
And we lost.
yeah, I think we lost him again. Okay. All right. Okay, somebody here. Oh, Tom Burns said the Bay of Fundy, between Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, only a few miles from me. All right.
Yes.
Okay, there we are. Okay, so yeah, I brought this picture here up. It looks like you were launching a boat.
Yes, back in 2009, I believe, we were asked to participate in a boat launching in Lunenburg, Nova Scotia. It's a fairly well-known site as a World UNESCO site, World Heritage Site. This boat weighed about 7,000 pounds,
Wow.
a little bit more than 7,000 pounds. You can see me in front of the Oxen starting to pull it down the slipway.
Yeah,
There's
that's
about
you right there.
3,000 to 4,000 people standing there.
And that is amazing to me that, you know, and we kind of talked about this a little bit ago, talking about the difference between horses that would be working in the farm field or pulling things, the difference between that and the oxen. And in this particular thing here, you know, with like you had mentioned, well, go ahead, if you would just kind of tell us a little bit about the difference between using a horse to do something and using oxen to do something, the differences.
Yeah. If you notice, the water is in the background. Well, this boat was down next to the water, and the horses wouldn't go down there. And that's why they asked us to do it with the oxen. The oxen don't have that fear of water like a horse does. So we was able to go down and get the boat, bring it up to the street. We went down the street about 300 yards, turned around, and now we're heading down to the slip to launch it. Off on the right-hand side, you see the priest. You see the lady there with the bottle ready to push in the ship. And after this, the boat would have been pushed into the water. Cannons would have been shot off, foghorns blew, and everybody cheering and waving and so on. It was a good day.
Oh, I can imagine. That would be really neat. And I would like to be there to watch that. And being able to do it with the oxen, that's just fantastic.
How many oxen were there? 2 there?
How many oxen did you have there, Carmen, to do that? Just the 2?
What, in the image?
Yes.
Just those 2.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know if there was more there. It looked like there was just 2 in the picture.
We did have another. Yeah, we did have another pair on standby just in case.
That's amazing to see that they could pull that. And I was kind of talking about the difference between the horses. You know, I kind of related it, whether or not it's a good relation or not. But in my brain, you know, you work with the oxen is more like a diesel engine. You know, they're hard pulling and they're not a lot of speed maybe, but a really hard pulling. Whereas the horses would be more like your gasoline engine, you know, really fast and all of that. But when it comes to the horsepower or the oxen power, I guess you would need for really pulling, you know, that you would use the oxen in that respect. And that's something that's really, I mean, they're, and you said too, also they can go places that horses cannot, you know, obviously by the water, but over rougher terrain, supposedly too.
Yeah. One of the reasons oxen were preferred is that they didn't fear water so bad. You can stand them in water while you unloaded a boat onto the wagon. So that eliminated a step of bringing it up on the shore, and then on the wagon you could directly from the boat to the cart or to the wagon. Oxen are very if you have a cow has a bull calf.
Oh, there he went
There you
again. Oh boy. Well, I hope it's not too disruptive, folks, for you all, that you can, be able to get through this.
He is very interesting with what he's had so far here today.
Oh, I know. He's got some good information to partake. There he is. Okay, now he's back.
Yeah. Have an ox when he grows up. Also, an ox will walk through rougher terrain than a horse. A horse tends to get nervous and upset. An ox won't. If a horse should shove his foot in a hole and get caught, he'll get nervous and break his leg. An ox will just take his time, pull his foot out of the hole, and keep on going. A horse requires very high quality food. An ox, you can feed him leaves or meadow grass, whatever. A horse has a lot of problems such as spavins and founder and colic and hees and deaf and so on. Or an ox usually has nothing wrong with it.
I imagine the temperament would be a lot better too.
Yes.
Okay, so
and at the end of the day, you can always eat it.
Yeah, if you had to, that's
might be a little
exactly right. Yep, that's exactly right. That's interesting. So okay, so I'm going to go over here. Okay, so we've but that, I tell you honestly, that is so interesting to me about using the oxen and the fact that you're still carrying on that tradition of doing that. And for, like I said, I would love to be there to watch that kind of thing. And I know that, talking about the island just a little bit too, is that, the farmers that were in that area to do their farming, such as Samuel Ball on the island, and many of those that would be inland would use oxen a lot back in that day as well, more so than horses, I would think. Is that true?
Yeah. Yes, that's right. That's very true. Okay. There has been horseshoes found on the island, but most of the shoes have been ox shoes.
Oh, I see. Yeah, they never show us that, but I suppose there would be. There's no reason why they wouldn't be.
That's
horses
right.
on there as well. Yeah.
That's
speaking of the island, so we'll kind of jump over to the island a little bit. There has been quite a few finds, and of course, your job for the Oak Island, the team, is to take things that they find in the ground, that they dig up or wherever they come up with them, whether it be in the money pit or anywhere else at a swamp, and they bring them to you for analysis and dating. That has to be a fine art to be able to look at something and not only know what it is, when most of us do not, but also be able to give some sort of a date to it. And that's got to be a fine eye to be able to see what kind of helps you with the dating of stuff like that.
Well, a lot of the items we grew up using the same items.
Oh, really?
Points, spears, hooks, and all those hinges and stuff like that. When I started working for the museum, again, they would come to me and say, I want a French hinge made in the 1750 style. But first of all, I would have to find out. So then that kind of led for me to research, well, what kind of style was it in the 1600s? What kind of style was it in the 1800s? How did it change? How did the French make theirs as opposed to the German and the English? And I concentrated on the French, German, and English during the last 400 years of.
Oh, there he goes.
There he goes.
All right, we'll get him back here. There's a couple of pictures that I have here that I want to ask him about. So I've got some pictures of some of the items that he's found on the island. All right, here he goes.
Another thing is I was a curator for a local museum here for a few years, so that helped me to do research and identify more artifacts. More so than just blacksmithing artifacts, but a lot of it was iron artifacts as well. Plus, it was part of my job to know how the traditional styles of each of those nationalities in all those years were made. So it was just required of me to know.
Right. And that's something that has to be an awesome talent, because, when I've got a picture here that I want to share, and this is from the island when they're looking at some of the oxen shoes that they have found, and many of which that they have brought to you. And
Yes.
you talked about, looking at them, you can tell, even with all this incrustation on them like this, you're able to look at them and say, okay, that would be more of a British military style versus another nationality. How in the world do you tell the difference? I mean, obviously you have an eye for that, but help us to understand that a little bit.
Do you have another picture of the ox shoes?
I'm afraid I don't, unfortunately. I think that's the only one I had of the shoes. Let's see here. Yep.
If you had one that kind of looked down upon the shoes, I could
Yeah,
probably
unfortunately, unfortunately I don't. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, a French shoe usually is more stylish. Whenever the French made their items, they tended to have a fair bit of style, not quite so much practicality. The practicality was always the Germans. So the Germans were very rough, austere, and practical. The French tended to be smaller, thinner, and more stylish.
Oh, okay.
The English kind of fits in between the two. They were practical, but they were also stylish. So when you see a French ox shoe, the front half of the shoe is always going to be pencil thin. The back half is going to be fairly wide. With an English shoe, it's going to have a thin neck, but the very front of the shoe is going to be very wide. It's going to have a big throat into it. The French shoe has a big throat into it. That's that curve in the inside.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
With a German shoe, the throat is going to be very small and it's going to be wide on the back as well as the front.
Wow.
So
now, what's the difference between a spring and a winter shoe?
Yeah, a summer and a winter shoe.
Summer and a winter shoe.
The corks that dig into the ground. If it's a summer shoe, those corks will be thick to take the wear and tear on rocks and gravel.
Right, makes
sense. In the wintertime, those corks that stick into the ice or snow will be very thin and sharp so that it really digs into the ice.
Okay.
Interesting. Yep. Oh, we lost him again.
I think you heard me that time.
Yeah, you did. Let's see. Boy, I brought up that one picture. There's some of the stuff, unfortunately, folks, and I have the here he goes. Maybe. Well, maybe not. See if he's, yeah. Boy. No, he's still going around in a circle. There he is. All right. I hope this isn't being too aggravating for you.
Oh, well, we won't do this for a whole long time, that's for sure. Yeah, basically, ox shoes the corks are sharp, so they dig into the ice.
Right. That makes total sense. Yeah, exactly. Now, and again, talking about some of the shoes that you have seen from the island they brought you, I would imagine that they've also found some, because we know that Samuel Ball was on the island doing a lot of work and I would assume that the farming that he did, he would need oxen. So have you found, some of the more farm use shoes, and what's the difference with those? Would they be more rugged and heavy duty, or how's that work?
The older shoes that I've seen that would be like late 1700s were small. You wouldn't find really old shoes any bigger than, we'll say, probably 4.5 inch from heel to toe. Samuel Balls would have used a little bit bigger oxen, and the shoes would be like 5, 5.25, so on. So those shoes were for farming. You can sort of tell that they were used for farming because they were made robust so that they were used for continual use year after year.
Right.
The older ones in the beginning were very thin; they didn't last long.
So you've looked at some that were from the British, and did you find any from the French that were on the island as well, from Oak Island? Did they bring you any of those? So that shows a French presence on the island for sure.
There were.
And then of course the farming ones. So wow, and that's the thing, and I kind of think of you as a blacksmith interpreter, and being able to read these metals and understand what they are and what their use would be, is almost in the form of an archaeologist. And I kind of wanted to ask you what your theory of Oak Island was, But you know, in my brain, also thinking the fact that you're going to work with items that you find from the island to put together a story and tell you the facts of what was there. So what do you think about Oak Island? Before we get further into it, what do you think about Oak Island, and what's your theory on who was there and what they've done and all that?
I I would say that the team has brought me probably, we'll say, 200 items.
Wow.
Mostly iron items. Some of the items weren't iron. Some were leather. Some were brass. But most of them were iron items. Other than those 200, you know, I can look at them and I can see the blacksmith making them. I can see how he made them, what they were made for, how they were used. Just by looking at the wear marks, I can pretty much tell how they were used and what they were used for, and so on. So, putting that story all together, I can say conclusively that I have no idea what was going on. I have no idea. I do know the British military were there during the 1700s.
Right.
Now,
And
you tell me, what were they there for?
I don't know. Yeah, I really don't know. My thinking would be that they were using it as some sort of a staging point. You know, with some of the things that they found, the slipway and that, I would think that, and we know that there was
a fort up above.
Yeah. So, but really, what were they doing there? I really don't know. I mean, yeah, let the artifacts tell you the story.
The artifacts tell me a story that things were happening on the island over hundreds of years, not just decades, but over, you know, centuries. And there were different nationalities on the island.
Yep.
Even Spanish.
Really? So Spanish were on the island as well.
Yeah, I'm not a real good expert on Spanish items, but I do know there was some Spanish on the island as well.
Wow.
Carmen, the one thing I really wanted to know was that with all the items that you've gotten, when you've gotten them from, say, from the land or from the swamp, is the swamp a better preserver of things where you can observe it better once it's cleaned off? Because
sorry, I can't hear you, Jack. Can you tell me what you said, Jeff?
Yeah, he's asking about the difference of where the items were found on the island, whether it was like in the money pit area or in the swamp. And then he was asking about the actual swamp itself, the brackish water. Is that a better preservative to maintain them?
It certainly is. Yeah. Anytime you can keep oxygen away from the iron items, it slows down the process of degrading. The iron itself.
Oh, all right. Remember where we left off there, so we could get him. Oh my goodness, we might have been better to reconvene this at a different time, but we've gotten so far that I didn't want to back out of here. Here he comes. Oh my goodness, poor Carmen having to do this all the time. I still apologize for all this you have to do. So yeah, we were talking about the swamp and its preservative nature.
Yes. Let's say you had two identical iron artifacts in 1840. One was iron and one was steel. The steel one would be long gone. It would be corroded to the point where it'd be gone, disappeared. The iron item, however, it corrodes a lot more slowly, and you can see the grains in the iron, and you can actually see the orientation of the grains as well. If that iron is kept in an environment that keeps the oxygen away, such as deep down in the swamp, it will preserve itself a lot longer than, say, it was exposed on top of the ground up on top of the hill or something like that.
Right. Yep. Yeah, that's very interesting. And some of the things that I know that just in the last season that we're watching so far, we found that Gary and Jack Begley found several of the oxen shoe in that what they were calling maybe a path that was leading from the southeast corner of the swamp, maybe to the pine tar kiln or towards the money pit area. They were finding these oxen shoe in kind of a line, and they were bringing them to one of the other pieces that they found. And I'm going to bring this picture up. One of the other pieces they found was this piece here. Now we saw it all covered in, pretty rough shape. And how would anybody be able to determine what that was? And I know Gary had one idea, but when they brought it to you, you thought it was more of a decorative item. I think if you can remember this particular piece, I know you've seen 200, but if you can remember that particular piece,
it looks familiar, but I can't really say. I remember seeing it. I don't remember what I said about it.
I think you were talking about it being on a cart, being more of maybe a decorative piece on a cart. I think that Gary was sure.
Yes. That was the like a knob would be on top of a military style cart. Yes. And I thought he sort of thought it was something to do with the auction itself, the harness or the whatever they use. But no, this particular item would have come off of the cart as well. And I do believe it was a cart, not a wagon.
Now, and describe that. What do you see as the difference between a cart and a wagon, if you don't mind my
cart has two big wheels, whereas a wagon would have 4 wheels, one on each corner of the wagon.
Interesting.
Carts were easy to use, easier to transport, and the cart could go over terrain that a wagon would have problems with.
Right. Yeah, though that definitely makes sense.
Carmen says you've been doing blacksmithing for 17 years.
Yes.
And I think the Laguinas have been there for 12. Did anybody ever come to you with artifacts before the Laguinas started on the island?
Anybody has come to me what?
With
before
artifacts
the Laguinas came on the island?
Before the Laguinas came on the island, did anybody ever bring you anything like Dan Blankenship or any of them?
Oh, for sure. Yes. People would bring me all sorts of stuff, especially along the South Shore. They would show me things that middle 1600s all the way up to 1890. They would bring to me to the Ross Farm. Like I say, at that time, I was not the only blacksmith there. They would leave it with me. They would leave pictures with me, and then I would look at them and make a report and get back to them. Since Oak Island, or since I've been on Oak Island and identified some of these artifacts, I get contacted by mostly people from all over United States, mainly, and I get about 10 to 12 requests every week. They show me pictures of their items that they found, and they want to know what they are and what they were used for, who made it, and so on. And 75% of the time, I can tell them what it is, and I enjoy that. That's very interesting. Yeah, I learned a lot. I learned a lot more too doing that.
Oh, absolutely. I can certainly see that. And the multitude of things that come, and I guess, and I don't know if I know we had talked about this a little bit earlier, but how did you come to be asked? I think was it you knew Doug to be able to come to you? If they found these things, they say, well, who do we go talk to about this? And I guess was it Doug that introduced you to the crew to begin with?
Yeah, 9 years ago, Doug was the president of the Kings County Museum, the local museum in the Annapolis Valley. And so I got to know Doug because I'm a director of the museum. And so Doug worked for the, I think he worked for the Nova Scotia Community College. And we're all volunteers with the museum. But when these artifacts started coming up, they was wondering who they could take them to see what they were. And Doug suggested that, hey, maybe a traditional blacksmith could enlighten them. And they showed me about a dozen items, and I was able to wow them because Marty said to me after I got done explaining what these items are, Marty said, you know what's going to happen now? I said, what? He said, you're going to be on TV.
And how did you feel about that?
Oh, I enjoy it. It's a good enjoyment. I get a kick out of it. Yeah. I'm also, I'm fascinated about the history of Oak Island. I, among other people, would like to know what was going on there. And it just, the mystery just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And it goes over more years and more nationalities and more people. I do kind of wish that the island over the last 200 years didn't get all tore to pieces so bad. There's been a lot of digging in different places. And so that's too bad.
Yeah. Yeah, we've talked about it on the show quite a few times. The fact on this show, the fact that like people like Robert Dunfield that did so much damage to the island over the years,
Yeah, just
really
bulldozers, bulldozers,
yeah, and lost so much of that heritage, and that's why it's so important now that they have people like Laird Niven and the other archaeologists like Aaron Taylor, and then you got Liz Michaels and Miriam there working too. And that's nice because this needs to be documented so well. And I'm glad that the Leginas are very much, that's very important to them.
it is.
Yeah. If only Dunfield, would have been the same way.
Yes, that's right. We would have been further ahead in knowing what was happening there. Yes.
Yep. I totally
and
agree.
also, what you see when you watch the show, what you see of Marty and Rick, is exactly what they are in real life. They're exactly the same as what you see. Rick and Marty are both very sincere. They're very careful about what they do to the island, and they want to make sure that everything is recorded and looked after and done right. Really,
exactly.
Done right.
Yeah. Yep. And that's something that's very important. And I think that, on this show here, we've kind of talked about that before, that you get the sense that they are very sincere about stuff, that they're men of integrity. They're not going to plant an item and they say, oh, look what we found, that sort of thing. And also in that, we found that the show is it's not scripted. It is what it is. They go out, they have a plan of where they're going to go and what they're going to look for that day or what areas they're going to be working in. They have obviously the separate teams, but we're getting a look at exactly the way it folds out for their workday. And I think that's very, very important. And I think that makes us feel better, because I've had some people that I've talked to about it that have seen the show and they're like, oh, they're planting stuff out there. And I said, no. And they said, well, how do you know that? And I said, I just get that feeling just from watching these over the course of 8 seasons now, watching Rick and Marty and Gary and all the gang, and you yourself, even watching you on the show, to know you're not going to make something up. You're going to give your true opinion. And I know this, you're like dating something. You have to be a little broad in that, unless for whatever reason, that particular item was made in 1706. You have to be a little broad with your dating, because it could fall between a couple of different areas. And I appreciate that. I think most people do appreciate that.
They want to do the show as if the viewer is there and seeing what they see.
Mm-hmm. Carmen, how many times do they come up to see you during the filming season?
I'd say 2 or 3 times a month.
Oh wow!
Wow. Yep. We don't get to see that. We only see you in little snippets. You know what I mean?
When they film for usually 5 hours, but I don't get 5 hours on the TV.
That's amazing too, because we've talked to some of the other folks that we've had on, and they will say, oh yeah, out of a especially some of the theorists that have been on the show, Gretchen Cornwall and Alessandra and people like that have been on the show, and they will say, oh yeah, we were in front of the camera, like you just said, for 5 hours, and they were on there for 5 minutes, if that. That's got to be, and so much. And it was very interesting. I'll just mention real quick too that we had Laird, and he's going to be he's coming up on this show in a few Saturdays from now. But when we had him on before, he mentioned that very same thing, and the fact that you sit through all of this stuff and you go over it, things that we don't get to see. And one of those, now Laird is put up on the internet. He was given authorization to put a bunch of pictures up. That we are seeing pictures of Smith's Cove and U-shaped structure that we had never ever seen before. Right. And I'm sure that there's a lot of that you could share. I mean, if you could, that type of interesting things. There's so much going on the island that we don't get to see watching the TV show. Is my point to that.
Yeah. In the summer, it's a very busy spot there. Everybody's running around doing this and that and the other thing. It's a lot of behind the scenes things. Yeah, certainly.
Yep. Carmen, one of the things I wanted to know about was that I know you've only been to the war room maybe once that I can think of, but the time you were there, they had that whole table of stuff laid out, by year and everything else. How impressive was that? To see how much there actually was.
Yes. I'm in that picture there that I'm looking at there. I'm looking at part of a potbelly stove that they would have used on a ship.
Yep.
I remember one episode they had a whole bunch of items laid out on the table that was at the war room.
Yes.
And I don't know, might have had 50 items there and so on and so forth. So we went through the items one by one, and we discussed the story that was told. The one that stuck out to me, and this is my favorite item that I was shown from the Oak Island, was the hardy that was used to sharpen rock drills. The hardy was used in such a way that I knew there was a lot of rock drills being sharpened there, which means a lot of tunneling or mining at the Oak Island for whatever reason. That was very fascinating. You can see him there and on the right hand side there.
Yep.
And by the way, you see that shoe in the middle?
Yes.
That's an English shoe.
Oh, okay. All right. And it has that curve to it like that. Yeah.
It has a big throat or a big curve, but a really heavy front end.
Wow.
So they would have to have a blacksmith on the island while they were doing all that.
What's that?
They would have to have a blacksmith on the island to keep everything in shape.
Oh yes, that's right. Yeah.
And that would be somebody they would probably bring with them. I mean, if they were on a campaign coming over and bringing, people over by ship, they would have to have people with different specialities, like a blacksmith and that to come.
Oh, yes, you would have to have blacksmiths, carpenters, cord wainers, sail makers, all that stuff on board. Yeah, and a supply of iron. The iron would be kept in the hold of the ship at the bottom, to provide ballast and so on and so forth. But yeah, all those skills would have to be brought with them,
right,
along with the tools and the anvils and forge, coal, whatever.
Mm-hmm. And that's something that they have found pieces of that coal. I remember just recently, Gary, they were working in the southeast corner of the swamp, and Gary was out doing his metal detecting, and he actually came across a piece of coal. Now, we haven't heard anything. Now, coal probably can't be dated. I know the charcoal can be dated, but coal can't really be dated because that could go back well before people were, the person that was there on the island who dropped it there or what have you. But so
the coal was formed many, many millions of years ago, but it is also carbon, but it's just been made so long ago that you could date it, and it'll say 2 to 3 million years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't tell you anything about who dropped it there or when they were there, right? But of course, the charcoal can. But obviously, from the fact that Gary found some of that coal there, it means you're exactly right that they were bringing coal over.
Yes.
As they're working in that southeast corner of the swamp, they found several things, and I know, and this was something that Jack and myself and Linda were just kind of talking about, and we were, because we were asked you to be on the show today, and then last Tuesday night on the Curse of Oak Island on TV, they just showed some stuff that they found in the swamp that they're going to bring to you that we can't even talk about yet because you haven't seen it yet, according to us on the show of where we're at in the timeline. There was a lock and another piece that they found in there, and I'm like, oh, if only we could have waited and brought you on later so we could find out what those were. One of the items that was found, we have those swages, is this piece here. Now, I know that, again, they have shown us this item on the show. They have not shown you talking about this item on the show, and I didn't know how, and I don't want to put you in a bad position. Of course, I know you're under NDA and not to talk about certain things, and I didn't want to bring that upon you, but they showed us in drilling down. Maddie was holding this eye bolt that I call it, or I don't know what the actual name of it would be. I forget what they called it that night, but he's holding on to this ring bolt or eye bolt, and showing the end of it here being splayed out like that. What can you tell us or share anything with us about this particular item?
Well, yes, I can a little bit. When the item was brought to me, they called it a ring bolt, and I explained to them that it's not a ring bolt; it's an eye bolt.
Okay.
The ring bolt and the eye bolt is a little bit different. They may show more episodes with me explaining more about this.
Hopefully.
So I don't want to go into too much detail.
I
but I will
understand.
say the end there that's flared.
Yes.
I will say that was done after it was applied to. Yeah, hopefully it'll come out. You'll have to get back with me again and I'll tell you. But after it was inserted, after it was used, we'll put it that way, then the end onto it was flared, so it wouldn't come out. I can't tell you what was in. I can't tell you what it wasn't supposed to come out of until later. But,
and that's the thing, because we're so fascinated by the things that they find like this, and some people are like, oh, big deal, it's a piece of steel, what we want to see, gold, we want to see treasure. The thing of it is these all tell a story, and like you were talking about before, they tell that story of who was there and gives us a date of roughly when this piece would have been manufactured and been on the island. They all tell a story, and as you mentioned, where they're all laid out on that table.
Yes, it's part of the story. Yes,
absolutely. And like that's why I kind of attribute you to a little bit to an archaeologist. I'm not calling you one of those dreaded archaeologists like Marty says on the show, but he talks about or in my mind, you being kind of in an archaeologist way, is where you're going to be looking for pieces and artifacts that you can date, and you can tell us who made them, and they tell a story. So and they put it all together to come up with a conclusion. That's the same way that an archaeologist, I have asked Laird, I came right out and I asked Aaron Taylor. I said, who do you think was on the island? What do you think? What's your theory on it? And they go, man, I don't go there. I look at the facts. I dig up the facts. We have them tested, and we conclude, and we put together a story from there. And that's kind of the same way I think you would do as well.
Yes, with the iron items, I tell them what the story is that I see.
Mm-hmm.
Now they can use that information and try to put all the information together to build a bigger story. The problem is, it's not one story. So how do you know which item goes with which, and so on? So there's several stories over many years by different nationalities. So that's going to be hard to figure out. But I'm hoping in the next 3 to 4 years that they start putting these things together and come up with a plausible story of at least one activity.
Right.
A timeline, an accurate timeline of it.
Yes. A timeline.
Yep.
Yes.
Here's one more piece I want to show on this picture, and then we're going to go to some questions. We're getting quite a few questions from the folks and the members that are watching here today. Sure. This piece here and this is something that fascinates me. They had the talk where they said that there was an anomaly, a 200-foot long anomaly, when they did the seismic in the swamp, and they were thinking it was maybe a ship that was burned up or something like that. Some of us were in the background saying, I don't really think that's true. How would they burn a ship in there? How would they even got the ship in there? That sort of thing. Then they find this piece right here, and this is a piece of I guess it was a piece of strap, a planking, a metal bracket for some metal for wood planking, I guess, and it was burned up. And that's one of the things that you had said when they brought it to you. You said, "Well, this has been in an intense fire." What can you tell us about this piece?
It was a rusted out, very corroded piece of iron that was bent at an angle. The angle was very sharp, so that tells me it was for a timber. Okay. And I believe I measured it to be 9 inches, which is a very common size of brackets used on sailing ships.
Mm-hmm.
The holes were punched in a way that was used to connect parts together on a sailing ship, like clinking.
Yep.
The reason why I said it was in I think it was a sustained fire or whatever, is that I could see the corrosion on the item itself. In other words, I could see the carbon from the intense fire embedded into the grains of the iron.
Wow.
So that was just an obvious giveaway that was through a really, really hot fire.
Right. And that leaves us scratching our head, because we're thinking, okay, if there was a ship, I mean, why would this piece be there? Why would it be in the swamp? And why would it have been exposed to a very intense fire. So again, they find these pieces, but it leaves us with more questions. Why was this thing there? If they didn't burn a ship up, I mean, how else would it have gotten there, and how would it have gotten burned up?
Yeah, that's right. I can't answer that. I can only tell you what the Iron Sea tells me. But I can say that they were lucky to find that piece, because iron in that time period was a fairly prolonged process to make. So any pieces of iron that was valuable at all were gathered up and taken with them. So to have that little piece, they were lucky to even find that.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about, they found a piece that they took to you that you said was some type of weapon. It was a real little, about that long.
Oh, a pin.
You said would be used as a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't know if you remember the piece or not, or
it almost looked like a nail, if this is the one you're talking, like a threading needle for sailcloth or something. But I don't think it was very sharp. It was only about 3 to 4 inches long, and it was sharp. It was a little like a needle, like a large needle that would be used for. That's what we thought. But then you had mentioned it could very well be used as a weapon of some sort.
Oh, yes. I know what you mean now. Yes. It was sort of like a needle.
Yes.
But it wasn't a needle because it had no hole in the other end.
Right.
And the other end was also sharpened too, but it wasn't.
Oh, we lost him. All right, he'll get back and he'll finish telling us about that needle. All right, and then we're going to go to questions from everybody, because we've been on for about an hour and 20 minutes. And here he is coming back, and we'll get to some questions here in just a moment. Okay, you're back.
Yeah, the needle was on the other end was tapered to a sort of a blunt, so it had like a half-inch taper. That tells me that it was inserted into a wall, piece of wood, or whatever, and it wasn't an awl. It wasn't an awl would be tapered on the end, but it would be tapered square so that the awl don't turn. If you have a completely round awl and you insert that into a piece of wood, what's going to keep it from spinning?
Right.
So it has to be square tapered on end. This was completely round on both ends. One being a long taper, the other one being a short taper. So that tells me that it was some sort of you place them in places where you don't want people to go. Basically, that's what it is.
Wow.
Sort of like a booby trap, or you just put them in places where you don't want people to go. They were also used in farming too, to keep cattle and wild animals away from certain places.
All right. So it may not have a military aspect to it, or a booby trap aspect to it, but more of maybe a farming tool or use.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I wouldn't know that.
Right. Yeah, that would be hard to determine at that point. But that just, and I think like Jack was saying there, that just kind of blew us away, because initially we were thinking, when I saw it, I thought, well, it's some sort of a needle, or, a sailcloth needle or something. But like you said, there was no hole in it. So I thought, well, you can't drag, your thread through without having that hole in the end. So,
and this was a very well made, very refined piece. So there was hardly any corrosion.
Yeah, I remember that.
I think it came from deep underground, if I remember right. So you like I say again, it was put to keep people out of there.
Right.
Now, if that's deep underground,
right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of the things that we always go back to. And I know that's not part of your specialty or expertise, is that, the whole fact that, people say, well, there's no treasure there. Okay, there may not be a treasure there, but I tell you what, by golly, people have been 200 feet underground tunneling, and you have found evidence of the tools that would have been used for tunneling. In the things that you've looked at, where you've seen the chisels and the hammers and whatnot, and the swages, which definitely leads to tunneling. Why were they down there? And again, that just, okay, so there may not be this big vault down there with all this gold and treasure and artifacts from religious artifacts and the menorah or whatever. But yet we have, I think, officially proven that there was people working several 100 or so or more feet underground in tunnels. What else would they be doing down there? So
yeah, it was a major major activity there for a fair bit of time as well.
Right.
Again, it could have been different times over many hundreds of years, but
yes,
we know that there was a lot of major activity down there. We all know there was leather book bindings, there was bone. That stuff gets there somehow for a reason.
Yeah.
And we just got to know more. That's all. We just got to.
We need more.
It would keep a blacksmith very busy, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So we're gonna open up to take some questions from some of the folks out there
Sure.
in the chat. And one of the questions that I did have popped up here, this is from Tom Burns, and he said, I understand brass was used in the construction of ships and fittings, and with the shipping activity on and off the island, he wonders why Gary would not be finding more brass items on the island. What's your theory on finding more brass type things?
Well, first of all, they have found some brass.
Okay, I think I know where you're going on it.
Too far into, but no, the brass items has been found.
Okay, all right. So we'll leave that for a future show. Let's see. And I know that. Go ahead, Jack. Do you have a couple questions that were given to you ahead of time?
I was wondering, with the strength of the oxen, was that one of the main reasons why they were on the island? Because I read somewhere where somebody asked could they move the rocks that Nolan's cross around to make that cross, and it said it'd be much easier for the oxen to do it than for the horses to do it, or something like that.
Yeah. A team of oxen, let's say they weigh 3,000, 3,500 pounds together, they can pull 1,000 pounds. So if you have a rock that's weighs 10,000 pounds, you can pull it with oxen. You can place it wherever you want and orient the rock, tip the rock, turn the rock, whatever, with a pair of oxen. Yep. So even if it's a big rock, you can use 2 teams, 3 teams. And like again, oxen can go places where horses can't. So even if there wasn't a road, the oxen could still snake through the woods and pull that rock wherever you wanted it. Again, the typical team could pull about 10,000 pounds or 5 tons.
Wow, yeah, that's fascinating. And of course, we were talking about Nolan's Cross, and I know again that's not your expertise, but moving those stones around to get that in place. I mean, men aren't going to be, well, they could if they get enough men in ropes to do something like that, but again, a team of oxen could do it fairly easily, I would think.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with the movement of the rocks and putting the rocks in a certain place, because I know the oxen, 2 or 3 teams could do all the rocks on Oak Island. What I have a hard time getting around is how did they know where to put them? Right.
Yeah, I know. You're exactly right. That's that expertise to be able to line up. They said that the rocks for like Nolan's Cross were lined up so perfectly, the length, the distance apart. I mean, that to me is just it kind of blows my mind that we have a hard time doing it with today's technology, but they were able to do it however many hundreds of years ago. Just very fascinating.
Very fascinating. I don't. Well, I know they had certain navigational technologies back then. They still had, they could measure distances and angles and degrees and all that. How did they know how the Nolan's Cross was going to be superimposed on the island?
Right.
I don't know how.
Yeah, me either. Yeah, that kind of stuff just blows me away.
Yeah.
Let's see. One person asked, this is Patrick Franklin, asked, Carmen, do you think that there is a Templar connection on the island based upon what you've seen?
Are you asking,
Whoop, you
do
broke
I
up there.
know, or are you asking me if I think?
If you, well, that's it. Okay. I would love to ask you if you know, but I don't know. Can you tell us that?
Well,
If you
if you're
can't,
if you're asking me my opinion, I
yes.
can say yes. Yes, there is a Templar connection.
All right.
Do I know that for certain? Can't tell you.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. We'll wait
I
for
don't
more.
think many people can, Carmen. I think
Oh, yeah.
that's still a big question with a lot of people. How many
Yeah.
nationalities are in there?
Yeah,
And
exactly. 'Cause
when?
that's something that we've had some guests on that are historians in Templar history, and listening to them and researching little bit with them, I am on board with believing that they left over there in the early 1300s, probably 1307, and came across from Scotland, and then came across to Nova Scotia, to Scotland, and then set up over here. But that's interesting. I'm glad you were able to put that to bed just a little bit anyway for us. I appreciate that.
We now know that cross-Atlantic navigation back in those times wasn't quite such an ordeal as it you would one time think, right?
Right.
Once you go to Faroe Islands, from Faroe Islands to Iceland to Greenland, it's only skipping and a hop to Vinland, which most people think is part of Nova Scotia, or oh, it's fascinating.
Yeah. Did you have another one there, Jack, from the members?
No, I don't right now,
Okay.
Jeff. I don't.
Okay, let's see. I've got one. Joe is asking, he said, not metal, it's not metal related, but how long does it take to film a meeting that you would do? Let's see, with the Oak Island crew. Oh, you had kind of mentioned about when they come out to bring you something, are they there for a few hours, or how does that work out?
What was that again?
It has related to when they're coming out to do filming with you. Let's see, how long does it take to film a meeting with you with the Oak Island crew when they come out to your shop?
Yeah.
Are they there for a few hours with you?
Yeah, so I would say roughly 2 to 3.
Wow.
Yeah.
And we see, you look at this one, you talk about it, you look at this one, you talk about it, and they say, okay, bye. And that's all we see.
They bring to me in the blacksmith shop. I usually have about 5 minutes to look at them before they
okay.
start talking about them.
Yeah, that's interesting. Let's see. Okay, so I'm trying to read I'm reaching out to the members here. I'm trying to read some of the questions that you guys have put up. And I'm scrolling back, looking at some. I tell you, there's been so many comments. Over 177 comments so far have gone by here. So I'm trying to yeah, it's really been going. Let's see.
People look forward to hearing you today, Carmen. They really did.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. That's for sure. Let's see. Oh, they're talking about gypsum mining. So one of the guys, Henry, was actually answering Tom about gypsum mining in Mahone Bay. That's not your area of expertise, but do you know about that as well? Gypsum mining?
There were gypsum mines here, not too far away from Oak Island. Were they doing that on Oak Island? I don't know. I know that there were gypsum mines. I live close to a place called New Minas. It was called that because of all the mines, but most of them were copper mines.
Yep.
Carmen, the question I have is, they had to have blacksmiths on the island to get all this stuff done, to keep working and everything. Yeah. But they never really put up they've never found any buildings or structures. Could they do all that out in the open?
No, it would have been in some enclosure, somewhere out of the wind. Not necessarily a building. It could have been just some enclosure that had a little lean-to or some protected place out of the wind. As far as I know, the only blacksmith site they saw was Samuel Ball's place.
Okay. Yep. The one thing, Tara Lorraine is asking the question, is there anything that they brought to you that you were not able to identify?
2.
Really? Wow.
There was 2.
What did they look like?
Oh,
If you could.
I can't remember now.
That'd be interesting. Something
Yeah,
that you could not identify. Then they're not going to show that to us on the show, obviously.
There was 2 items. They had me stumped.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. Because I know that, and again, we're going to see coming up here in future episodes, we're going to see some of the stuff that they just found.
For sure.
And I know that they, one of them was like a lock plate or a cabinet like a lock mechanism for a cabinet. And then they actually found what kind of looked like a paddle lock. It was covered in mud and everything. We didn't really see that yet. But also the brass knob, I guess it was a brass knob. And I don't know, we saw that. And of course, they kind of played it off in the commercials, which Prometheus loves to do and tease us with it. But it looked like, oh, it's a shiny gold object and it's big. And then as soon as he rolled it over on the show, when Gary found it, we see the hole in the bottom. And as soon as I saw that, I said, oh, that's a knob for a cabinet or something.
Well, I know you have a little bit of blacksmithing background, so you would know.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yep. So did they, and I know you probably can't talk about it because they haven't shown it, but have they brought that to you? Were you able to examine that item?
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
Good,
but there will be more about it on upcoming episodes about the lock and the knob and so on. So I don't want to say too much more of that right now.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I can't wait to see that. And again, we just love the fact that you are on the show and that you are able to do this, because again, as an archaeologist looks at those little pieces and then they take something and they send it off to the specialist to look at it with their microscopes and look at it with their analyzing machines and all of that. We love seeing that and we love hearing about those things. But we also love when they bring you something and then you can hold it in your hand and you can tell us a story about that. And that to me is just it's priceless, because you're able to identify all but 2 of the items that they brought to you and tell us a story about those. And that's
I can't tell you the composition of the elements used in there. I can tell you it's iron, or I can tell you it was made before 1840 or after 1840. Mm-hmm. I can tell you it was made in the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, or 1900s. But I tell more. I can see the story. I can see what it was used for, how it was used, how much it was used, and so on. So, but as far as telling you what the elements of the item, I know it's iron, carbon, steel, manganese, phosphorus, all that. But you have to analyze that scientifically to know more about that story.
Right. Yeah, that's it. I was just trying to read some of the other things that are coming up here.
Carmen, I got one here for you. You found a portion of the potbelly stove that you had here a while back. Mm-hmm. Now, would that have been something a blacksmith would have done? And then they put it in, or would you have made something like that?
What was that again?
The portion of the potbelly stove, the latch door that they found and they brought to you, is that something that a blacksmith would make, or is that something more that a production, like a factory, would make?
No, that was foundry made. It was a mass produced item.
Okay.
It was not made by a single blacksmith. No, it was made
it's by a different type of it's a different type of a metal too. It's not more of an iron type metal. I think it's more of like a cast, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it's not technically wrought iron. Mm-hmm. It was just mass produced.
Okay, you kind of touched on it earlier, but one of the members asked, "What was your favorite find that they brought you from the island?" What I think, was it the swages, or what was your most favorite find that they brought?
That was one of them. I pretty much had 2. The swages. There's a little bit more I can tell you about the swages, but I'm not allowed to right now, but maybe someday I can tell you more about the swages.
Well, but we definitely want to have you come back at some point.
Oh yeah, you're going to have to come back.
The swages are the item that really blows me away. because of the age and the use and the amount of mining and tunnel that it indicated, was just I was awestruck.
Mhm.
The other item was the hand point used to chisel or carve into rock. It was fascinating. I held in mind the very same thing that somebody way back when were using to carve messages or script wording or whatever into stone, rocks, whatever sort of thing. It was just amazing to see the craftsmanship and the way it was used, and it worked so well that I went and I reproduced a couple for the production crew.
Oh wow!
Made one for me as well back home to where do they live again?
Traverse City.
Yes,
Michigan.
Michigan. Yes, yes. And most of the crew, I think, have come from California. So yeah, it's kind of neat.
Production.
Some of the stuff out there.
Yeah. Yeah, most of the production crew is from California. There is some production crew that I guess lives in Nova Scotia, and then you have the folks that are from Michigan. You know, up the Leginas. They're homeboys with me up there. They were originally
Jack Bagley's up there, I believe, too. If I remember correctly.
Now, if I remember correctly, they're from the western side of the UP, where I'm an eastern UP person. So I lived on the eastern side when I was up there, and that's what I still call that home, even though I live in Western Pennsylvania now. I still call the UP home when people ask me. And I've got right here, I got a couple of hats right here with the UP that I've seen like Marty wearing that, but that's where I'm from. So
nice.
Yeah, and that's so, and it's, really, I think as far as longitude and latitude, I was going to look that up one day to see how it relates to Oak Island, because the weather seems like we have swamps, we have a lot of cedar trees we have in our area, but it's very similar as far as the weather is concerned and the things that they have there. Certainly the stinky swamps, and I know that's one of Marty's favorite places. I was just looking back to see if we had some other questions, and I know I've missed some folks, and I apologize for that.
Speaking of Marty, he makes very, very good wine.
Does he? Well,
Linda, you're at Linda.
Yeah, well, Linda's had some. Linda has she, for whatever reason, she can't get it there in where she lives directly, so she has to go to a couple of other people to get the wine brought down to where she is.
Yeah, very good.
Mm-hmm.
Carmen, there is a question here that somebody had. All I have is Facebook. They talked about a stove in the bottom of the shaft. They would be used to draw air into the shaft.
Mm-hmm.
Now, would that be something a blacksmith would make, or would that be come over with them and they just go ahead and put it down there?
Yeah, that was something that Alessandra, when you were on with Alessandra Nudavari, she did a very good interview with you, and that was something that she had brought up about a way to bring fresh air into the tunneling area while they were down there working. And again, I know you said that on her show, and it was very good. And I'm sorry, Alessandra, if I'm taking this, but how could you explain to us how that would work? How would they bring fresh air into a tunneling area like that?
Once you get down, we'll say 40 or 50 feet, and it depends on the airflow on the area and whether you're against the wind, away from the wind, and so on. But you're going to have fresh air drawn down into the mines. Mm-hmm. So let's say you had to go down 200 feet. You're going to have to create a hot air rising up somehow. And if air rises, is heated and rises, it sucks cold air down.
Mm-hmm.
The cold air down is what you can breathe. So you would create a flue. A flue could be a wooden container all the way up. It could be piped. It could be, a place carved into the side of the cave or side of the wall of the mine or whatever. But at the bottom, you're going to create a coal fire. And coal will heat up the air and send it up the flue. That forces cold air to come down and replace the hot air that goes up.
Right.
So that's how you can breathe down there. Now, what you need to find, see if that actually happens, charcoal and coal and the ball have been burnt. and coke, clinker, things of that sort. And then you know that there was a hot air, cold air transfer in that area. So the cold air would come down the big hole. The hot air would be just off on the side, going up a small flue. It would be like 2 feet by 2 feet.
Right. Yeah, that makes total sense. When I heard that you explaining that to her before, that makes total sense because obviously people that have worked with building fires and chimneys of that nature, that it draws that air in through in your house. Let's say you had the fireplace in your house. It's going to draw fresh air from every little nook and cranny in your house where it can, and it's going to go up through that chimney. It's going to draw that air in. That makes total sense that would work to bring fresh air into that deep of a mine. And I never thought about that before.
Yeah, if you do some research on back in medieval times, the miners would go down like half a mile or even further in the ground. But periodically throughout the whole mine, there would be mine shafts sunk just for that reason, to make hot air go up, and that would bring in cold air for the whole time, all the mine, half or a mile underground or even mile long under the ground.
Right. Wow.
It worked very well.
Yep. And I imagine it would. And that's because that's fascinating that it would be done that way. And that's something that I hadn't thought of before. And I heard you explaining that on her show, and that was very, very interesting. So I'm glad. And one of our members did ask that question and kind of try to get an idea about that. Well, I tell you what, this has been fantastic. Go ahead.
I would say that if that technology or similar technology would have been used back in the, in the 50s, I think, or 50s, 60s, whatever it was, we wouldn't had the rush dolls die.
Yeah, that's
there was
very true.
Accumulation of poison gas down underneath that didn't get circulated. That's what killed 3 of them, 3 or 4.
Yeah, as they went in, and not only them, the rest of us, but then the people who went in to try to do a rescue attempt, a few of them died as well. Yeah. And I didn't read at one point on the show, they had said something about H2S gas. And then on another part of the show, they said something about the CO2 that was from a running engine or something is flowing down into the hole and asphyxiated them while they were down there. I work in the safety industry, and I work with gas detection monitors every day. So I'm very familiar with H2S gas and CO2 and CO that can be very deadly. So when I heard that speaks to my, and again, back then they weren't so concerned about that, but if they had some sort of a fresh air system set up, you're right, that probably wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, some of the rescue workers said that it smelled like rotten eggs.
Then that would be more of an H2S, I think, wouldn't it? Yeah. Yep. Wow. And that's too bad. Yeah. And I know they talk about the legend of Oak Island, one more has to die before the treasure can. I know. I don't know if I necessarily believe all that, but it is definitely a dangerous thing. And we've seen, where they put divers down in 10X and divers down in H8, and that just that thing itself has to be very, very, very dangerous just to,
that's for sure.
To be able to go down in there. And some of the work that Billy does, when Billy was working in the uplands and he had his excavator right on the edge and he was undermining under him, when he was digging, you just get scared for them. I mean, I know that was several months ago when they did the filming for that, but you get very scared for them, so.
Well, did you see when Rick drank the water from the swamp?
Oh yes.
There.
There was probably about 2.5 million people all gagged at the same time when he did that. He spit it out, but still.
Still, I mean, you switch it around. Oh no.
Yeah. Like I said, I being from northern Michigan up at the UP, we deal with swamps all the time, and we used to go, have to dig out beaver dams that created swamps and things like that. And I mean, it is mucky and it is smelly, and they're in there digging and crawling around in it. I'm just
and that swamp up there is just as bad.
Oh, Yeah, and I know you've been on the island a few times, you know, so I suppose that you would have you got a chance to smell that yourself.
Oh, it was
Hmm.
bad.
Well, we certainly look forward to the rest of this season, obviously, and the finds that they're going to bring to you.
There are going to be more fascinating things coming up. Yes,
Right.
Well, we hope you'll come. We hope you'll come back and tell us what you found out.
I
Yes.
will. Don't worry, I will.
Yes, we definitely love to have you come back because this has been a just an awesome afternoon that you've spent here with us today, Carmen, and giving
Very
us
good.
information about it. I really wish we didn't have the internet issues that we had. Hopefully next time we won't have those and we'll be able to continue on. But there are some more finds, like you said, and I'm sure there's more that we haven't even seen yet that will be coming up that we can check out. And we really look forward to that. I can't thank you enough for taking time out of your busy day to come and spend this with us and give us an education on things on the island. And not only that, but things that you have done in the blacksmithing world. And I just wish you all the success. Oh, one last question I had to ask you is, now that you are a world famous, and yes, you have to say world famous blacksmith, how has this changed your life, being on TV and being so well known by people around the world?
Well, I was amazed, and I'm still amazed that people didn't know this stuff about the items. Already. I figured everybody knew what these items were for and how they were made, and so this show and doing this just kind of brought it, made it real that there's a lot of people out there that don't know what these items are and how they were used, what they were made for, and so on and so forth. So now I feel as though I have to pass the knowledge on, I have to pass the skills on.
Yep.
Do I feel a bit of a chip on my shoulder that I'm responsible for that? A little bit, but not a whole lot. But I do kind of wish that the knowledge and the skills, especially the skills, traditional skills, don't get lost.
Yep. I agree.
It's a part of history.
Yep.
Yes, it is part of history. But I thought everybody knew it.
Yep.
I just realized now that no, not everybody does know what a hand point looks like or a swage looks like. Or,
yeah, absolutely.
I just figured everybody knew.
Yeah, when that came up and they were looking at that, immediately I said, "Oh, that looks like an ancient sledgehammer." Well, okay, it was for pounding or it was for sharpening, but I had no idea. And then when it was mentioned that it was a swage, I'm like, okay, I have no idea what a swage is. No.
That's right. And I enjoy that. That's fascinating. And I will do my best.
Yep. And that's why we need people like you to teach us about that sort of thing. And I really hope that you're able to continue passing down that knowledge to others so that it doesn't get lost. We need that. We need to keep that. It's very, very important that not only the techniques for blacksmithing, but all the other things that you've been able to show us and teach us about is so vitally important for history. Like Jack said, and it's an art that I hope is never lost. And thank you for what you do to pass that on, and the work you do at the museum, and the work you do on the island to educate us all. And I wish you all the success. I hope that we have, like you said, we have many more finds coming up, and I can't wait to see them. And again, I want to thank you so very much for coming on with us today and showing us all this stuff. It has been absolutely phenomenal, and I know the guests will. If you'd like, I can send you. I know you're not actually a member of our group, and I don't know how you feel about that. But what we do is sometimes we ask that because now we've reached over 235 comments on this time we've been on, and there are many questions that I missed on. I'm sure I missed them. But if what we'd like to do is sometimes go back and take a look at some of those questions and maybe answer them later after the fact, because this stays on YouTube. It stays on Facebook. You can view it on YouTube and answer questions there if you'd like, or even be part of the group. But again, I want to thank you so very much for coming on with us today. It's been an education. We hope to have you come back. We want to have you come back and tell us.
Come back.
Certainly will. It was enjoyable, and
thank you.
This is one way that I can sort of pass the history on, and or at least the interest to learn more about your own history.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Very good. Yeah. It was nice
Right.
to meet you, Jeff and Jack.
Thank you.
Yep, it was really
Nice
great
to meet
meet
you.
too. All right, folks, I'm going to wrap it up. And with that, I'd like to say to you all that are watching out there, if you do go on YouTube and you're watching from YouTube, please do us a favor and click on that subscribe button that should be down there on the bottom. It's a little red button that says subscribe. And if you click on the notification bell there, you will be given notification of whenever we have new content available and coming on, and shows we have coming up. Again, I would like to thank you all for being here. And again, thank Carmen for coming here and giving us his expertise. And he has said he will come back, so we're going to hold him to that. All right. So I hope everybody has a great afternoon. And again, thank you for coming here today. All right. All right. Have a good day.
Very good. Very good. Hope for a better connection next time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Good day, everyone.
See ya.